What if I told you that one of the most powerful ways to stay sharp under pressure has nothing to do with training or working harder? No more reps, not more data, not another supplement. Something most people abandoned years ago. Creativity. Because when the pressure rises, when the decisions matter, when the stakes are high, the people who win aren't just disciplined. They're adaptable, they think differently, they stay composed while others tighten up. And what if the tool that builds that edge is something as simple as picking up a pen, a brush, or a piece of music? Today we're not talking about art as an hobby. We're talking about creativity as a performance advantage. Welcome back to the Winning Edge Coach podcast. I'm your host, Kev Oakley, and this is where we break down the tools, tactics, and strategies that build a stronger, more resilient mindset so that you can perform at your best when it matters the most. In today's episode, we're exploring something that might completely change how you think about training your mind. Because while most people focus on physical conditioning, nutrition, recovery, there's a missing piece, a fifth pillar, one that directly impacts how you think, adapt, and perform under pressure. Backed by research from Professor Daisy Fancourt at University College London, along with large-scale studies across neuroscience, psychology, and public health, creativity isn't just good for you. It sharpens your brain, stabilizes your emotions, and enhances your ability to perform when it counts. So today I'm going to show you why creativity belongs in the toolkit of every high performer and how to start using it immediately. So let's go. Let's start with the science. Professor Daisy Fancourt has spent over a decade studying the effects of arts engagement on human health and cognition. And what she found was remarkable. We're talking about large cohort studies, tens of thousands of people tracked over years, and the conclusion is clear. Regular creative engagement improves mental resilience, reduces depression risk, and even extends lifespan. But here's the winning edge angle. This isn't just about living longer. It's about performing better while you're here. Because creativity directly affects three things every high performer depends on: clarity, adaptability, composure. Let's break that down. Psychologically, creative activity increases dopamine. That's the neurotransmitter linked to motivation, reward, and focus. And at the same time, it reduces cortisol, your primary stress hormone. One study showed that 45 minutes of creative activity significantly lowered cortisol levels. Now translate that into performance. Lower cortisol means less panic. More dopamine means sharper thinking. That's the difference between reacting and responding, between freezing and executing. Biologically, the effects go even deeper. A 2025 study published in Nature scanned over 1,400 individuals, artists, musicians, dancers, and compared them to non-creative controls. The result? Those engaged in creative activity had younger brain profiles, stronger neural connectivity, more efficient information processing, greater resistance to cognitive decline. In simple terms, their brains were more adaptable. And adaptability is the foundation of performance under pressure, because pressure is unpredictable and rigid minds break. Flexible minds adjust. This is why creativity isn't a luxury. It's cognitive cross-training. Now, let's connect this directly to performance environments, because this is where it gets practical. In high-pressure situations, whether that's sports, business, decision-making, your brain is under load. Information is coming in fast. Emotions are elevated. Time is limited. And your ability to perform depends on one key factor: cognitive flexibility. That's your brain's ability to shift, adapt, find solutions in real time. And creativity is one of the most powerful, effective ways to train it. Think about elite performers. Top athletes use visualization, not just to rehearse movements, but to creatively simulate scenarios. Musicians develop timing, pattern recognition, and emotional control under pressure. Even in high-performance business environments, the best leaders are those who can reframe problems quickly and generate options, not just follow scripts. That's creativity in action. Now here's where the research reinforces this. Group creative activities like music or dance create something called social synchrony. Heart rates align, breathing patterns sync, and over time, this improves emotional regulation and connection. One long-term study found that participation in group arts reduced loneliness by 30%. Why does that matter for performance? Because isolation amplifies pressure. Connection stabilizes it. Then there's decision fatigue. When your brain is constantly operating in analytical mode, it becomes rigid. Creativity interrupts that pattern. It allows your brain to reset, reorganize, and approach problems differently. That's why some of your best ideas don't come when you're grinding. They come when you step away. This is not accidental. It's neurological. This isn't just theory. It's already been used in real-world systems. The NHS in the UK has introduced social prescribing, where doctors recommend creative activities like choir participation as part of treatment for mental health and chronic conditions, and the results are measurable. Reduced reliance on medication, improved recovery outcomes, better long-term well-being. Music therapy has also been shown to reduce the need for pain medication during surgery. That's not mindset, that's physiology. The World Health Organization has recognized arts engagement as a tool for preventing cognitive decline and improving public health outcomes. And economically, the impact is massive. In the UK alone, arts engagement contributes billions in health savings annually. Bringing it back to you, because this is about systems, it's about your edge. Every time you engage creatively, you're doing three things. You are resetting your nervous system, you're strengthening your neural pathways, and you're expanding your ability to perform or think under pressure. That's training. Let's talk about elite performers, because if you're thinking, that's great for general health, but what about high performance? That is covered in the data too. There's a study I find fascinating. Researchers took elite figure skaters, athletes already operating at the top of their sport, and partnered them with teachers from the Cirque du Soleil. 10 sessions, improvisation, mindfulness, creative exploration. 77% of participants saw increases in their artistic scores. 7 out of 9 saw improvements in their overall competition scores. Some by as much as 12%. 12% improvement. In athletes who are already elite, that's not a minor gain. In elite sport, that's the difference between the podium and the field. The researchers concluded that the skaters had developed a performance state that better facilitated flow. They weren't just performing better, they were entering the state of flow more reliably, on demand, under pressure. And here's the mechanism. Investment in creativity led to better use of task-orientated coping strategies, which in turn made flow more accessible. So creativity wasn't the destination, it was the training system that got them there. This extends across team sports too. A study published in The Sports Psychologist in 2023 interviewed elite ice hockey players, athletes from the NHL, the KHL, and the Swedish Hockey League. These are some of the best players on the planet. And when asked about creativity in their performance, they described something nuanced. Not just, it helps me score goals. They talked about increased enjoyment, enhanced development, improved in-game performance, longer career progression. They identified 15 different modalities of creative action in their sport. 15. That tells you something important. Creativity in elite performance isn't one thing, it's multidimensional. And the athletes who harness it most effectively aren't using it as a single tool. They're building an entire creative intelligence. Now, let's go somewhere most people wouldn't expect. The military. The US military runs a program called Creative Forces, a partnership between the National Endowment for the Arts and the US Department of Defense. It operates in military healthcare settings across the country, using art therapy, music therapy, and dance movement therapy with service members. Target population: veterans and active service members dealing with traumatic brain injury and PTSD. The results were striking. A 66% decrease in depression, a 50% decrease in anxiety, an 83% decrease in stress. 83%. And when soldiers were asked to rate which treatment had been most helpful to their recovery, Creative Arts came in as one of the top 5. But here's the detail that stays with me. The arts gave these service members a way to express and process experiences they couldn't bring up anywhere else. Not in therapy, not with family, not with colleagues, only through creativity. That tells you how deep this runs. Creativity doesn't just improve output, it accesses parts of the human system that nothing else can reach. And it's not only veterans. We see the same pattern in other high-pressure populations. Healthcare workers. The University of Colorado and Children's Hospital Colorado ran what's called the CORAL study, the Colorado Resilience Arts Lab. Over 350 healthcare workers enrolled across multiple cohorts. 12-week program: music, writing, dance, visual arts. The results from the randomized controlled trial showed a 28% reduction in anxiety, 36% reduction in depression, a 36% reduction in PTSD symptoms, a 12% reduction in emotional exhaustion. These are doctors and nurses, frontline staff, people working under the kind of sustained, relentless pressure that most of us will never experience. Here's what makes these findings exceptional. The improvements didn't fade when the program ended. They persisted for up to 1 year afterwards. 1 year. That's not a temporary relief effect. That's structural change in how those individuals were operating. Creativity rewired their resilience. Now bring it into the workplace, because this is where many of you spend most of your performance hours. Research from the University of Exeter, led by Craig Knight and Alex Haslam, looked at what happened when the offices were enriched with art and plants. Productivity increased up to 17%. When employees were actually empowered to shape their own creative environment, when they had agency over it, productivity gains reached up to 32%. That's 32%. Think about it in the context of your own environment. The space you work in, train in, prepare in. Is it creatively inert? Or is it actively working for you? The British Council for Offices survey found that 61% of employees said artwork inspired them to think and work more creatively. That's not decoration. That's a performance variable. So why does all this work? What's the underlying mechanism? It comes back to the brain. There's a network in the brain called the default mode network, the DMN. You might know it as the system that fires when you're daydreaming, walking, or standing in the shower, when a great idea suddenly arrives from nowhere. That's not random. That's the DMN doing its job. It's the brain's rest and wonder circuit, active during imagination, reflection, and idea generation. Neuroscience shows that creative capability is positively correlated with the internal connectivity of the DMN and its interaction with the executive control network. In plain terms, the more fluidly these two networks communicate, the more creative and effective you are under pressure. You're not switching off when you engage creatively. You're activating a deeper system, one that generates insight, perspective shifts, and novel solutions. And here's the connection to flow. Athletes who enter a flow state show a specific coupling between the default mode network and the executive control network. Simultaneous idea generation and goal-directed processing happening in real time. Flow and creativity don't just feel similar, they share the same neural architecture. So when you invest in creative engagement, whatever form that takes for you, you're not stepping away from the performance work. You're building the neural infrastructure that makes your best performance possible. You're training the network that finds the breakthrough when the game is on the line. The insight that arrives at that critical moment. The decision that separates good from elite. This is the creative edge. Not a soft skill, not a hobby, a performance multiplier. It's by neuroscience, proven across elite sport, military resilience, and the highest pressure workplaces in the world. The question isn't whether creativity matters to performance. The evidence is settled. The question is, are you training it? So, how do you apply this? Not as a hobby, as a system. Think of this as your creative edge protocol. Step 1. Identify your entry point. What did you naturally gravitate towards before performance became serious? Music, writing, drawing, movement. This isn't about skill, it's about engagement. Step 2. Microdose consistently. 10 to 15 minutes, that's enough. Consistency builds neural adaptation. This is no different from physical training. Step 3. Rotate stimuli. Different creative activities challenge your brain in different ways. Writing sharpens clarity. Music enhances timing and rhythm. Drawing improves visual processing. Variety builds flexibility. Step 4. Go analog. This matters. Physical interaction, pen on paper, hands on instrument, movement through space, activates more areas of the brain than digital input. More activation equals stronger integration. Step 5. Track your state. After each session, ask, do I feel clearer, calmer, more focused? This is your feedback loop. You're not guessing, you're refining. And here's the key mindset shift. This is not about producing something impressive. This is about building a brain that performs. Because when the pressure hits, you don't rise to the occasion. you fall to the level of your training, and this is part of your training. Think about this for a moment. Where in your life are you relying purely on discipline, when what you actually need is adaptability? Where are you pushing harder, when stepping sideways might move you forward? Creativity gives you options, and options reduce pressure, because pressure isn't just about intensity, it's about lack of perceived control. The more ways your brain can respond, the more composed you become. Professor Fancourt's research shows that creativity improves health, extends life, and protects the brain. From a performance perspective, it does something even more valuable. It keeps you sharp, it keeps you flexible, and it keeps you in control when others aren't. That's your winning edge for this week. Remember, creativity is not a distraction from performance, it's preparation for it. So here's your challenge. Pick one creative activity and commit to just 15 minutes within the next 48 hours. Treat it like training, because that's exactly what it is. If this episode shifted your thinking, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And share this with someone who's always pushing harder but might benefit from thinking differently. And if you found this episode useful, it would really help if you could leave a quick review or rating. It takes less than a minute, and it helps the show reach more people who are serious about performing at their best when it matters most. As always, thank you for listening. Until next time, keep finding your edge.